Because of the coronavirus pandemic, there hasn't been a lot of attention on the current state legislative session. And tonight we're hearing from lawmakers as a couple of new gun bills are set for debate. One would allow you to bring a gun into a church, and the other would change how local leaders are able to impose gun restrictions. Here's Paul Dudley.
There's a fight underway in Baton Rouge over a number of controversial gun bills.
Honest citizens didn't create this. Criminals have redefined the narrative.
First, House Bill 334 would allow a concealed handgun permit holder to carry a concealed handgun in a house of worship, if given permission from church leaders.
It's unfortunate that we must have to talk about this legislation and pass this legislation, but it certainly is our right under the Constitution to be able to protect ourselves. What this does is says if the pastor or church leadership chooses to allow you to possess a concealed carry permit, or if you have a concealed carry permit, then you can possess inside of a church.
There's also House Bill 140. It prevents local authorities from issuing restrictions to stop someone from carrying a gun. The bill would also allow the state legislature to decide the gun rules on behalf of all 64 parishes.
So, for example, Orleans Parish, because we have parades and so many tourists in town and Jazz Fest and large events, we would see the need for a little bit more stringent gun laws than, say, Shreveport or Bossier. And that second bill would prevent us from passing stricter gun laws.
New Orleans Councilwoman Helena Moreno tweeted that HB 140 would allow firearms in public buildings, like city council chambers. She is filing a local resolution strongly opposing the bills.
I think the key is why now? This is happening now because the pandemic, coronavirus, is keeping people from going to Baton Rouge and speaking out.
Criminals certainly do not choose not to commit crimes because we're in a medical pandemic. And as a legislative body, we're responsive to what criminals put in. Again, they created this narrative.
The bills will be up for debate on the House floor on Thursday. Paul Dudley, Eyewitness News.
There are two other gun bills passed out of the House Administration of Criminal Justice Committee. House Bill 746 allows those who lawfully possess a firearm to carry concealed for self-defense during a mandatory evacuation. House Bill 781 establishes that firearms and ammunition manufacturers are essential businesses that shall not be prohibited from conducting business during a declared disaster.